start by saying thank you so much for trusting me and coming today, because I know that talking about or trusting a lawyer is a difficult thing to do. So I want to start by putting you at ease and saying I am not going to scare you today, and I'm not going to make you cry. And I didn't even put this one. This is my risk hotspots thingy that I did when I first started designing this as a course, and I'm not even going to show it to you because it's too scary. So it's just there. The last group talking about the collaboration probably talked more about contracts and legals than I'm going to today, because I want to do something a bit different. I thought about, am I going to talk to you about intellectual property? Am I going to talk to you about contracts? Am I going to talk to you about resolving disputes with your clients? And I decided I don't want to. If you want to ask me questions about any of those things, I am absolutely happy to answer them for you. But I find that that kind of information is probably going to help you more if it's targeted to exactly what you need. So ask me and I will answer it. And there is space for this discussion around all of those issues in what we are actually going to talk about today. Now, this is me. This is the sort of thing I do. When I first came into the entrepreneurial world, I came in thinking that I was going to quit law. I was going to be a mediator because I had had it. I had had it with the adversarial mindset. I had had it with all of the traditional barbed wire, fear-based thinking. It was all just getting me completely down. And then so I was going to come in and just do mediation, and I was learning how to market a mediation business. And at the same time, I was writing courses for the College of Law for up-and-coming lawyers and for their master's degree. And I did this course on risk management, and I thought, you know what? The stuff that I'm writing about for lawyers for risk management is actually really useful stuff. Because at the same time, of course, I'm learning all this mindset stuff that we all know about from this entrepreneurial world. I'm learning about subconscious sabotage. I'm learning about all of these sorts of things, and I'm thinking, these processes are actually really, really useful. Don't you stand closer? Bend it down. Okay, awesome. Okay, sorry guys. These processes are actually really, really useful, but they are based in a paradigm of fear and avoidance of responsibility and setting up barbed wire fences to protect you. And I didn't want any part of that, and my clients didn't want any part of that. So I started reimagining, just as I'd been reimagining contracts and my DIY packs into contracts that care, I started reimagining risk management into something that was based in love and connection and curiosity. And that's how what I'm going to talk to you about today was born. So first a little bit about me. I am a homeschooling mum of 3 kids. They're 6, 10 and 12. Luckily, my husband is also at home, so we basically, instead of our timetable says, on the fridge at home says, who's got the kids? So rather than this is my workout, it just says, who's with the kids at what time. I'm also a lawyer and mediator, as you know. I've got honours degrees in law and a master's in law, majoring in alternative dispute resolution, and just like you guys, I am an online entrepreneur. When I started, my house was a complete mess and I was packing up to start moving, and I was too embarrassed to get on videos or client calls because of the mess that was in my house. So my husband bought me a $15 photographic backdrop on eBay, and being who I am, I chose this little fairyland scene. And my intention was always one day I'd get Emma Vega Malta, if you know her, to design me a custom backdrop as soon as I could afford it. But unfortunately, my fairyland backdrop became so much a part of my message and who I am and so aligned with me that she ended up designing me my little castle logo instead. I got her to design a logo that would match my backdrop instead of the other way around. So, these 2 quotes give us a background to what we're talking about today. So from the Dalai Lama, if a problem is fixable, If a situation is such that you can do something about it, then there's no need to worry. If it's not fixable, then there's no help in worrying, which means there's no benefit in worrying whatsoever. But we still do it, right? So what I'm trying to show you today is a process for getting the worries out, for processing those what-ifs, processing those maybes, processing those things that keep you small by working out, can I do something about them? If so, what am I going to do? And if I can't, let them go. And the other thing is that life shrinks and expands in direct proportion to your willingness to assume risk. So when you imagine all risk as a threat, you shut down, you get smaller. When you start reimagining risk as an opportunity, you grow. Now, I'm going to race through this bit really quickly. This is kind of the theory behind it. So when you suppress your fear and anxiety, even about little things, it saps your energy. So when you shove down those what-ifs and worries, you kind of bottle them up. I call them, and I'll get to this in a minute, but I call your business your castle in the air, and underneath it is the cave of your subconscious. And when you're cramming all of those dragons or risks into your cave, they are what's going to lead you to trap you in that negative mindset, to make you feel scared and small and alone. Exploring risks in a calm and curious manner leads to better decision making. So there's scientific studies that show that if you make small decisions and you're pleased with the decisions you make well, that you will go on and make more decisions and better and bigger decisions. You'll become more confident in your decision making, and you will actually start to make better choices and better decisions. So just that experience of making decisions leads you to make better decisions. And the more confidence you have about the decisions you're making, the more likely you're just going to see risk as an opportunity. You're going to see new areas to expand into. So the positive view of risk lets you reach higher, to thrive, to be more resilient, and to survive. Unpacking your worries and making good business decisions is going to improve your sustainability, improve your ability to connect with people, improve your longevity. And achieving a balance between the challenge in your business and your sense of security, so you've got that urge to grow, but you also feel safe doing it, that is what's going to give you the peace of mind to be the best business practitioner you can possibly be. Business person and practitioner. So the first step is exploring your risk environment. And that means getting comfortable with the totality of things that affect your operation. So that includes things like when you drop off and pick up the kids from school and what happens if your kids have a sick day. It includes things like how your husband's work might affect, or your partner's work might affect what you do. It includes things like your level of confidence and comfortableness with tech. It includes all of these different aspects of your life, not just your clients and the work you do with them, although that is a big part of it. So on that risk hotspot diagram I showed a second ago, there's everything from transport and environment and finances and everything in your environment sort of affects how you're going to grow. Nothing is out of bounds. So normal risk management, when you look at traditional corporate risk management, it's very constrained. My view of risk management is completely holistic. Anything is acceptable to be talked about in risk management. So, as I said before, you've got your castle and then you've got your subconscious. And in that subconscious cave are all of the things that you're suppressing, all the risks that you're worrying about, all your what-ifs, all the things that could potentially go wrong, all the things you're not sure about, you're uncertain about, anything it's not known. Because the unknown is always scarier than the known. So if you imagine that cave of your subconscious and there's smoke coming out of the cave, it's going to be a lot harder. It's going to make you feel worse. If you go into that cave or bring your dragons out of that cave and look at them with love and curiosity and say, okay, what is actually at risk here? That's when you're going to start taking that first step to knowing what it is, and it's going to lose its power over you. So examine your dragons with love. What were my risks in coming here? I thought they're going to think I am completely off my tree. What kind of lawyer uses castles and dragons to talk about risk management and expects to be taken seriously? Yeah, I am. I'm completely off my tree, but you guys love me for it, so that's what makes it okay. And so that became and that's what I'm going to talk about. That's a limiting belief, right? It's one I can let go of. It shouldn't stop me coming here. Another one I had was I'm going to be answering questions really quickly, off the cuff, without knowing all the details. And if you know, for a traditional lawyer, if you can't give a legal opinion or answer anyone's question without knowing all the facts. Whereas I'm likely to just sort of share my information with you as much as possible because I just like sharing information. So what if I give the wrong advice and they rely on it and something goes terribly, horribly wrong? With my DIY packs and the contracts that I draft, there have been months where I've sat and I have not sold anything and I have not posted on social media and I have not publicised because I have been absolutely petrified that someone is going to rely on, put in place one of my contracts and I can't control what happens next. I cannot control what goes on out there after that contract is out in the world. And that can be petrifying. And that petrifying feeling keeps you stuck. And so I have to learn, okay, what can I do? What can I control in this situation? I can make my contracts as clear as possible. I can educate myself around what needs to be there. I can do as much risk management, do as much curiosity and love, and shine as much curiosity and love on this question as I possibly can. And I can believe that that is going to give me the best chance of being safe. And I can also acknowledge the fact that you guys wouldn't go out and buy a traditional contract that nobody could read. And so the alternative is you either have one of my loving contracts or you have no contract. And surely, and for me, well, I'd rather you had something, some attempt at really calmly and curiously and lovingly communicating and connecting with your clients and managing your boundaries and doing all of those things. So I do my best practice, I do my due diligence, I do the best I can do, and I tell myself, yeah, actually, I'm quite happy with that dragon now. He's riding on my shoulder, I haven't let him go, but he's there keeping me safe, warning me there's a real world danger there, I need to do some more to make sure I'm safe, but it's not enough to stop me or keep me stuck or paralysed. So yeah, every one of these beliefs you're going to pull out of your subconscious is either going to be a limiting belief or a real world danger. The limiting beliefs you can let fly away. The real world dangers are not there to paralyse you, they are your friends. They are there to keep you safe. So, this is my little risk management. I don't know if you've ever seen a traditional corporate risk management diagram where you map out your risk management. It looks like a little traffic light. And it's got degree of severity of risk and likelihood of it happening. And so you've got your red, your orange, and your green zone. So if it's not going to hurt anybody and it's almost never going to happen, it goes down there in the green zone. If it's going to cause the end of the world and it's going to happen tomorrow, it goes up in your red zone. I didn't like that one, so I drew my own. This are the 7 areas that I condensed that risk hotspot diagram I first showed you. I condensed it down into these 7 areas. Legal, financial, technical, logistical, relational, personal, and spiritual. Pretty much every risk you're going to pull out is going to fit somewhere into this diagram. You've got one of these diagrams in your booklet and you can actually map it. So when you do a brainstorm, you do like a brain dump and you write down, just in a journaling, just on a list, write down everything you can possibly think of that's keeping you small, that you're worried about. What could go wrong in your business? What could go wrong in your practice? What could go wrong for your clients? anything that causes you any kind of nervousness or anxiety or stress in your business, write it down, and then you can go through, and that's called exploring your risk environment and identifying your risks, and then you can go down and actually map it out. And you can find out that if you've got a preponderance of spots in one of these areas, so for example, a lot of your spots might come down into the legal section or the relationship section or the financial section, then you know that that area of your business needs some serious loving and some really clear due diligence. That you've actually got to give it some attention and work out, okay, how can I put better structures in place here, because this area does not feel safe in my business, and if it doesn't feel safe in my business, then my business isn't going to grow. So, once you've mapped it out, what do you do with it? You take them one by one. So you start in the area where you've got the most issues, and you think, okay, can I condense some of these down? Can I make them easier to deal with? So you shorten your list by condensing things together, grouping like-minded worries together. And then you pick one, and you think, you go through this, it's a nice little decision tree. I love decision trees. Get clear on the consequences. Imagine the worst case scenario. Can it hurt you? Yes or no? If no, then it's a limiting belief. You can let it fly away. And there's a little guided meditation in the booklets that you can use if you like those sorts of things, to just imagine it, give it some love, thank it for looking after you, and say bye-bye. Don't need it anymore. If you can do something, if you can hurt you, can you do anything about it? That'll be yes, no, or I don't know. If it's yes, are you ready to do something about it? If it's no, if it's I don't know, or if it's no, then don't stay in the uncertainty. Don't shove it back down into your subconscious, put the dragon back in the cave and leave it there roaming around, growing and having babies and who knows what else it's going to be doing in there. Research it, or reach out for support. Find out who else can I share this risk with? Get a second opinion. Talk about it. Bring it out in the open. The more you bring it out in the open, the more you're dealing with it, the more opportunity there is for you to actually turn it into something you either can do something about or something you don't need to do something about. If you do need to hold on to it, even after that you think, yeah, it is a risk, it can hurt me, but really there is nothing I can do about it right now, you do the holding exercise. And the holding exercise is another guided meditation in the booklet, but it's all about giving the dragon a home. So instead of shoving it back down in the subconscious, you ask it, where does it want to be? And you imagine putting it into that little environment, that little home, like my little guy on my shoulder here, so it can hang around. It can keep warning you there's a problem, but it's dealt with in the sense that even though you haven't resolved it right now, you have a plan for dealing with it, or you have a plan for knowing that it's there and it needs help. The next question, are you ready to do something about it? No? Look at that further, unpack that. What is in the way? Do you need more information? Do you need more money? Do you need more time? Take it down into the holding exercise. Research it, plan it out, hold on to it. If you are ready to do something about it, don't put it off, schedule it. Take the action, map it out, put it in your calendar, put it in Asana, put it wherever it is that it's going to actually get acted on. Because otherwise you're just, letting the dragon sort of roam around loose, and he'll get bored and you'll go back into his subconscious cave and then you're stuck again. So make the plan, deal with it, and then ask yourself, is it still scary? If it is, go back to the beginning. Start again. What part of this potential problem haven't you dealt with? What's still left over that's scaring you? What's causing you to be anxious? If it's not, you can do the clearing exercise and let it go. So that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about for that part of it, because now it's your turn. I want you guys to give me some of your risks, some of your worries, and we'll see about what we can do about dealing with some of them right now. So who wants to start? Anyone got something? Yes, Sam. Perfect.
It's something that I've heard, because obviously, I have this sorted, but something that I've heard a lot of people talking about when they've been talking about, having the opportunity to talk to you is when you come into business and whether they're brand new or whether they've just never gotten around to the whole legal side of things, and we both know that there's someone who has an opinion on this, can you start off with just sorting out one part of your legal picture rather than coming out and having 10 different contracts, terms and conditions, like the whole legal shebang all in a go?
Absolutely. So there are lawyers and schools of thought that say you should not practice until you've got everything sorted. I tend to go on a sliding scale. So I have 3 factors I talk about. And if you've had a call with me, you'll have heard me say these ones. The first, and each of these factors goes from sort of a high risk to a low risk, or a high scale to a low scale. The first is how much money and time people are investing with you. Because the more money, the more time is involved in the transaction, the more upset they're going to be if something goes wrong, the more important it is to manage their expectations so that they know what they're getting from you and they know what's happening and when it's happening and all of that sort of clear communication. And the harder it's going to be, if something does go wrong, to give them their money back and tell them to go away. So the more money they're investing, the more time they're spending with you, the more chance there is something's going wrong, the more you need to get your legals sorted. The second factor is the degree of risk involved. So that's the degree of danger, of harm, of loss to the person you're working with and to you. So the more chance that if something does go wrong, it's going to have big consequences, the more important it is that you get those legals sorted, that you get things like your disclaimer in place. A disclaimer sets the boundaries between where your responsibility ends and their responsibility begins. So it says, I am qualified to do this. This is the scope of my services. However, you have to stand in your power. You can't expect me to fix you. You have to do your own research, make your informed decisions, do all of the things that mean you're taking responsibility for yourself rather than just relying on me. And if you look at any legal disclaimer, no matter how jargonistic or legally written it is, when you break it down, that's what it actually does. It tries to set the bounds. And the problem with the legalistic, jargonistic ones is that they squish it down this way, so that this is my responsibility and this is your responsibility. Whereas I believe that actually it's a collaborative partnership between you and your client. You have a duty of care. They have a duty of care to themselves as well. The third factor is how comfortable you are. And that comes back to this again. I have met practitioners who've been working for 30 years without legals, who have never had a problem, who are perfectly comfortable. Did I tell them, you need to go out, you need to get all of this stuff sorted? Well, yes and no. Yes, I said, you need a privacy policy because the law says you have to have one if you're working in the health and wellness sphere. Yes, you need website terms and conditions because under consumer law you have to have your refund policy readily available, you have to have your policies out there, and having your disclaimer out there is just a good idea. It helps people increase their trust with you. Do you need to get the U-Butte huge client service agreement? No. If you've done without it all this time, why do you need it? If you're perfectly happy. So at one end there's the people who are flying naked, as I call them, and at the other end there are the people who are not comfortable unless they've got the full suit of armour and the tank around them. And there is nothing wrong with either of those perspectives. And most of the people who come and talk to me are somewhere on that continuum. But if they're up here on the continuum where they need that suit of armour and they need that extra protection and they're flying naked, they do not feel safe. And so they do not grow their business. So yes and no. I will say if someone comes to me and says, what do I need? I'm startup. I will say, yes, you need your privacy policy. Just can't help that. The government says you need it. If they say, I can't afford it, I say, look, you're a small practitioner, know that you need it, put that dragon on your shoulder and keep flying naked for now. The chances of someone actually coming and throwing you into jail because you haven't got your privacy policy on your website, assess the risk. Are you comfortable with it? If you're comfortable with the risk, hang on to it for a while. If you're not comfortable with the risk, start saving, put in a plan, do a payment plan or offer me a skill swap or something, we'll get it done for you. So there are things that you must have, and there are things that are a really good idea and best practice to have, but do you need it now? Maybe. It will depend on you. Yes? Thank you.
But I thought I would share how I think flying naked is super risky because I feel like I may be the only naturopath in the history of natural medicine to have her claim against her for hair extension. So when you're flying that I had to pay out. So when you're flying naked, you never know what's going to come your way.
Exactly.
And I feel really comfortable with how that played out, and it was a mistake made by someone else, which I'm more than happy to share if someone wants to come and ask me later how that happened. But I think, you can never expect where it's going to come from.
Yeah.
So these things are definitely more important than I think.
Yeah. And even if you make that conscious decision to fly naked, it needs to be a conscious decision. You need to know that if you're going to run into something, it's going to hurt a hell of a lot more if you're not wearing any protection than if you've got the level of protection that you feel that you need or that makes you feel more comfortable. And that risk happens. Everything you do carries some level of risk. And how you deal with that risk, there's no cookie cutter. It's personal to you. My 7-year-old thinks there's a risk that if I go away to a conference, I won't come home. So she packed one of her dollies in my bag to bring me home safely. It can be that level of personality, personalness to you, that level of intimacy. You need to be really intimate with your risks rather than the corporate one where you just, everyone pulls their hair out because they've just got to fill in form after form after form and then they shove it in the filing cabinet and no one ever thinks about it again. That's different from actually being consciously aware of these are the areas where things could go wrong. This is how I feel about them potentially going wrong. This is what I'm going to do about them. And maybe, this is my action plan for actually doing it. Or I'm comfortable actually carrying that one for a while, but at least I've got it where I can know it, I'm aware of it, I can keep an eye on it. Any other questions? Yeah? Yep. Sure. So international clients is a good one. And it's one that's particularly pertinent to this subject actually because developing a course in risk management is one of my ways to reach out to international clients because everything else I do is Australians only. So this actually allows me to grow my business and it brings with it that whole extra level of risk. So the first problem we've got is insurance because insurers will not generally cover you for clients in another country. And we kind of rely on our insurance as our backup plan. It's kind of like the safety net that we believe will catch us if we go wrong. Now, unfortunately, as a lawyer, I have read lots of insurance claim cases, and I know that a reasonable percentage of the time, the insurers' lawyers will be looking for the loopholes that will pull that net out from underneath you and you're going to be stuffed anyway. That doesn't mean you don't have it. It just means you have to be aware that it's not foolproof. It's not absolute safety. There is no absolute safety. The only absolute safety is not to go into business in the first place. but it does help you. There's that chance of help. I hope that's not too scary. Is that too scary? That sounds too scary. Awesome. Truth bomb, yes. But at the same time, you can do stuff about that. You can say, okay, that's a risk and it scares me. What can I do about it? I can research what my insurer's attitude is. I can talk to different insurers and see if I can find someone to help that actually has values and visions aligned with me. I can tell my insurer I'm not happy with things and try and agitate for change. There's stuff you can do, always. Going back to international clients, insurance is out. Okay, what else can you do? The next thing you can do is contract law. Now, contract law, Australia inherited our contract law from Great Britain. So did the US, Canada, and pretty much most other places in the world have a similar type of contract law. So, in your contract, there is usually this little bit at the back, in the bottom, in the legalese stuff that nobody ever reads, that says jurisdiction. And this is why you don't pinch contracts from someone else, particularly if they're overseas, and you forget to change the jurisdiction, and it says, this contract will be dealt with under the law of Minnesota when you're in Melbourne. Tricky. Your jurisdiction, when they sign your contract or accept your contract in some way, your jurisdiction says, if there is a problem, it will be dealt with in my hometown, under my laws. That means that if they have a problem with you, they have to come to you to enforce it. That's the first step. It also, in every contract I write, in every DIY pack I sell, there is a strong alternative dispute resolution section, which says that if we have a problem, we agree that we will behave like adults. We will talk about this. We will discuss what's gone wrong, and we will try and find a solution that works. If we cannot reach a mutually acceptable resolution within a defined period of time, we will call in a neutral third party, a mediator, to hold space for us while we have the discussion that we need to have, that will help us pull out what's gone wrong, identify the underlying issues, brainstorm and generate options, reality test those options, and try and reach an agreement. And then it says, we will only go to court and have a judge make the decision for us on this issue if the mediator says we're completely hopeless and there's no way we're actually going to talk this out. When you look at the statistics for court cases, 90-something% of court cases actually settle before the judge makes the decision for them. If you can channel your dispute into some kind of alternative dispute resolution to start with, if you can approach the whole situation with love, with a willingness to see the other side's point of view, a willingness to try and find a way around it that is successful for both of you, if you can have a really strong, really clear, really fair refund policy that is 100% aligned with your values and vision, then the chances of an international client actually caring enough to go to war with you shrink. So, imagining worst case scenarios, assessing risks is an absolutely essential part of setting your business policies, like your refund policy, like your cancellation policy, like your withdrawal policy, but refunds in particular. If you've got a refund policy, it needs to be completely aligned with your values and vision for your business, which is why it's no use pinching one off someone else. You really need to think, what are my values for how I want my clients to feel? If they're not happy, what do I want to do about it? And people come to me and say, I don't know what my refund policy is. Can you write it for me? And I say, okay, well, let's look at what you want. Because there's everything from, I do not refund under any circumstances, to Ted Hargraves from Marketing with Hippies, who says, if you buy my course and you don't like it, I will not only give you your money back, I'll give you an extra $100 as a thank you for trying it out. Your refund policy does not have to be a cookie cutter. It needs to be what you want to do for your clients. And if you've got a really good refund policy, and the other thing is, if you're a real pushover and you adore your clients, and as soon as they tell you you've got a problem, you say, here's your money back, I'm really, really sorry, can I give you an extra session too to make it up to you? And your refund policy on your website or in your client agreement says, I do not offer refunds under any circumstances whatsoever, then you are going to be trampling your boundaries constantly. And what's the point in having them? So having a refund policy that is fully aligned, that you believe in and are prepared to apply consistently is absolutely important, because everyone sooner or later gets asked for a refund. And the other thing is, okay, so there's your contractual relationship with them. And one of the biggest problems when you're working with a practitioner who's overseas, if you're not happy with them, or if something goes horribly wrong, enforcing their contract in their country is really difficult. But they've got the same problem with you. So if they want to enforce your contract in your country, it's an added difficulty for them. So there's that little barrier between them actually coming after you and them actually doing it. So that's your insurance, your contract, and then the third one is your commitment to best practice. If you have an absolute commitment to best practice, if you're constantly educating yourself, researching, assessing the risk of what is actually involved in your practice and how you can make that safer for your clients, and warning them of all the potential things that could go wrong so that they can make informed decisions for themselves, and that they know how to protect themselves, then that's your best defense. A best defense is a good offense, and your offense is against risk, not against your client. If you're on the offense against risk and you're doing everything you can to minimize it, everything you can to put in place, mitigation, everything you can to make it safer for your clients, the chances of something going wrong shrink. Any more questions? Yeah. The problem is that there is actually a contract in place, but it's oral, it's verbal, and nobody is clear on the terms. And so you might think your contract means this and that you've agreed to this, and they might think you've agreed to this. And then this whole cloudy area in the center of things that could possibly go wrong, or actually cloudy area of the unknown. Things you haven't thought about happening, and if they happen, how are you going to decide about it? So if it's a collaboration is it a collaborative type relationship or an employment type relationship or subcontract? Subcontract. Okay, so yeah, I would be asking them, for both of your sakes, to put something in writing, even if it's just a heads of agreement. And I would be I would be sitting down and I would be doing my risk management and thinking about all the things that worry you about this relationship. And I would be making a list. And then I would be having the conversation with them that says, I'm not quite sure about, look, I'd really love for this relationship to work out. But in order for it to work out, I think we need clarity around these aspects. And I'd really like to get something in writing to clear them up. So even if it's not an actual contract, just increasing the clarity in writing is an awesome first step. Yeah. What's the biggest risk for people practicing in the naturopath industry? What do I see as the biggest risk? How long is a piece of string? In reality, my answer would be I would have to sit down and do some research into naturopaths and court cases and see what actually gets done, because you guys can give me a better indication of what your risks are than I can. And the answer to your question is, what worries you? Is it giving the client the wrong advice, giving them the wrong treatment? Is it not getting thorough information from them? Is it not protecting their data? Harming them? Yeah. Is it harming them? Is it, physician do no harm? Yeah. How can you defend against that risk? Yeah. You know the limits of your education and your awareness, and when you push outside those limits and work with clients who aren't in your full-on scope of, like, the core of your genius, you are aware that you're treading onto shaky ground right now, and you work out what you need to do to make it safer, whether it's consulting with someone else or, getting a supervision or something else around, educating yourself that bit more, doing that bit more preparation or working with that client. Because I'm sure you don't feel like that with clients who are in the core of your genius. You don't feel that worry about harming them so much, do you? No. Or even if you do, like with me with contracts, there's always a risk. There's always a risk of harming someone, whether you're a lawyer or a doctor or a naturopath or a business coach. There's always a risk that you're going to say the wrong thing, someone's going to take it the wrong way, their business is going to go, their life is going to go, their health is going to go, something's not going to go right, you're going to miss something. Always there for everybody in every business. How do you deal with that risk? You put contracts down, you tell them to make their own informed decisions, you set up the disclaimer which sets out the boundaries of your responsibilities, you get your insurance, you blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I have not done specific research into legal cases against naturopaths. It's the sort of thing I like to do, so I'll probably go home and do that now. I'll write a blog about it for you. Pardon? You will. Okay, so Sam's going to make me accountable for that one. Yeah, risk is a fact of life. And every single practitioner, no matter what their modality, no matter what their profession, is scared that they are in some way going to harm their client. Or be blamed for not meeting someone's expectations. Yeah. Or be blamed for something someone else has done that has unexpected repercussions. Yeah. Yeah.
So I can relate, I may have missed this, but I was curious to know how you came to create this for our industry.
Yeah, I did explain that a bit, but I'm happy to go over it. So basically, when I came into the entrepreneurial world, I was going to quit being a lawyer. I was going to become a mediator. I was going to do other stuff. And I was writing risk management courses for the College of Law at that time for Masters in Law students. And I thought, hey, this stuff is really good once you get rid of all the fear and the loathing and the adversarial stuff and the, barbed wire fence and the 40 guns blazing or whatever else. If you step outside of it and actually look at it with curiosity and love, it's actually really useful stuff. We've just thrown the baby out with the bathwater. Same as with contracts. Contracts are really beautiful things. Their whole job is to be a sacred container that holds the space for your relationship with your client to flourish. Unfortunately, over many, many years of perhaps I should say patriarchal legal system, they've turned into barbed wire fences. But we can reclaim them. So that's my mission, is to reclaim this stuff. And why do I work with your industry? Because your industry wants me. Because you guys love me. When I was going to give up, I had healers, spiritual healers, oracle card readers, psychics, intuitive guides. I had alternative healers, alternative health professionals. They were the ones who kept coming to me and saying, We know we need legals. We don't like the legals that are out there. Lawyers are scary. Lawyers are expensive. We like you. Come and talk to us. Help me. And I said, yes, I really, really want to. I love you guys. The problem with those traditional barbed wire contracts is even if you go out and get like a generic contract or you get a lawyer to write your contract, a traditional lawyer, the way I see it, it's tacked onto your business like an alien appendage. It's sort of flopping out there and it doesn't feel comfortable and, oh, can you just get it off me, please? I hope I never have to rely on that. Whereas a contract, a refund policy, a dispute resolution strategy, it should come from the heart of your business. It should be so aligned with your values and vision that there is no separation. It should be part of your holistic caring strategy for having a relationship with your clients. Yeah.
And can I just add to that? I am an affiliate for Michelle, and I was an avid user of her stuff, but even before I became an affiliate.
Sam is my best affiliate. She shouts out for me.
Don't tell Tammy I've overtaken her. But I actually, and the reason I started promoting Michelle before I became an affiliate was because I literally wrote my first contract that says, if you're on a Zoom call with me, my dog is probably going to interrupt. That is part of my service.
Yeah,
And that is it.
absolutely.
Because Michelle knows I'm dog trained.
Yeah.
You guys did this one.
And that's the thing. A generic policy will not fit you guys. And that's why I created my DIY contracts at CarePack. What I did, I went out and I love deconstructing stuff and rebuilding it. So I went out and I researched, and I'm a big researcher. So I went out and I researched website terms and conditions. I researched privacy policies. I researched naturopath agreements, or healer client agreements. I broke them down. What are these things covering and why? I didn't just care what are the headings. Why do they need to be covered? What's important here? What are they actually doing? What's it there for? And then I wrote them up as questions. Because then you can go through and you can answer those questions in my DIY packs in your own words. So you can answer them in the same language you use for your marketing, in the love language that your clients expect and deserve from you. So that rather than being some sort of forbidden, locked away thing that they sign because they have to, but they don't want to read it, your clients actually want to read your contracts because they tell you important information about exactly how you work and how you care for them and what they can expect. So whether that's your homeschool kids walking through the background or your dog coming in, whether that's when you're using my services, you need to be really worried about this, and this, or the one I've just done with Susan Kohlberg. If you expect to fix me, if you expect me to fix your problems, don't blame me when you go and do everything you've said you're not going to do. I cannot get inside your head and force you. You're in charge of what goes in your mouth. We literally wrote that in her contract because that is what her people needed to hear. And each of you will have things that you wish you could say to your clients, that you wish you could actually get out there in the open, and there is nothing to stop you doing it, and it should be there, and it should be in your contract. Because your contract needs, those barbed wire contracts, fence contracts, they are designed to protect against risk occurring in the future. They are written in language that is designed to be comprehensive because they're trying to cover every potential possible problem and throw everything at it, and they're only going to be read by a judge when something's gone horribly, horribly wrong 20 years from now. Your contract needs to be written so it will do such a good job of managing the relationship in the here and now that it's never, people say to me, will your contract stand up in court? I don't know. I hope I never find out. None of my contracts should ever end up in court because they do such a good job of managing the relationship right here, right now, that the problems are never going to escalate to that stage where communication breakdown is complete. Yep. So we got 10 more minutes. Yeah. It depends on the level of risk involved. It depends on what worries you about doing it. If you're going to say something that people could misinterpret, could run away with and go and do, so they're going to go scull 3 bottles of essential oils before breakfast every morning, you'd want to say something disclaimery beforehand. If you're just giving them generalized information, then no. Like, I should really, and it depends on your comfort level with that risk. So, for example, I should have started today with a disclaimer saying, what I'm going to tell you is information, not advice, and that unless you come and work with me and pay me money, then there is no client relationship between us and blah, 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 blah. No, I'm willing to accept that level of risk that you will go and act on what I've said because I believe in what I'm saying. I believe it is as safe as I can make it, and I believe you guys are nice and would come and talk to me first. So it depends, really. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And once again, a disclaimer is as simple as, this is my responsibility, this is what I know about, this is where I'm prepared to have my duty of care, and this is yours. You need to do your own research, make your own decisions, behave like an adult. And as one of my clients famously put it when I said, what do you think should go in your disclaimer? She said, don't be a dumbass. So in whatever way you need to write, don't be a dumbass, in the context of your business, write it or say it. But the beauty about writing it in a place like the spot on your Facebook page or in your website terms and conditions or a client contract is you don't have to say it every single time. You don't have to say it over and over and over and over and over and over again. Yeah. Yeah. They always have been. Unfortunately, it was hidden under this great level of legalistic obfuscation which said that we have some magical formula in our legal language, and so long as we write your contract in this magical legal language formula, you will be safe. Unfortunately, it didn't mean you will be safe, it just meant you will be paying more money to lawyers to interpret it and argue about it in the future. There is no magic in legal language. And more today, the law schools, and I'm a program developer with the College of Law. I write master's level courses for them. I edit their courses, so I know that this is the way it's going, is for clarity. We are removing legal, there's a whole movement in the law, the legal field towards plain English. Lots of lawyers haven't woken up with this, and there's one reason why. Lawyers are often not very creative people. Lawyers find creativity scary. I find it scary. I am stepping outside the bounds of what years and years and decades and centuries of tradition has told me is safe. So instead of, when you go to a traditional lawyer and ask them to write a contract for you, the first thing they're going to do is go to their filing cabinet or go to their database and pull out a precedent. And they're going to change a few words in that precedent, and they're going to read it through and make sure that everything actually relates to you. But it's just a precedent, it's a template. Starting from scratch, writing something new is where I believe the best contracts can be written for people who are outside the box. Because I don't think that boxed contracts can work for you because there are too many variables involved. They are not, just as you wouldn't go to a traditional doctor or a traditional business coach or someone who's going to tell you, no, hustle, 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 hustle. I think things have moved. I think we have created a new paradigm of business just as we've created a new paradigm of healthcare, just as we've created a new paradigm of spiritual healing, and that legals need to adapt to that as well. And I think that there is enough evidence that lawyers all over the world are moving in that direction, at least the visionary ones, that I'm comfortable playing in that field as well. Yeah. Yeah. So the question is, how protective are tick-the-box type agreements as compared to signed agreements? Remember my 3 factors and the flying naked thing? It depends, because if it's a small, low-cost agreement with a low degree of risk and you're comfortable with it, tick the box is no problem. The only difference between tick the box and sign the contract, and this day and age, I need to say there is no difference between having them physically sign it and having an electronic signature service. So Adobe Sign, eSign, there's a whole pile of them out there. Make sure it's got an Australian base, just in case you ever do have to enforce it. But there is no difference. The courts interpret them the same. The legislation has been changed to say that an electronic signature is just as valid as a scribble on a paper. Particularly for contracts like this, where you're not getting them witnessed. Like, there's not huge stuff involved that requires them to be witnessed and all the rest of it. When it comes to the choice between tick the box and signing, if it's at the low end of the scale, tick the box is perfectly acceptable, so long as you make it obvious. It can't be written, and I've seen this, in pale grey font at the very bottom of the page in 2-point text, right? It needs to be really obvious. These are the terms and conditions you are signing when you agree to join up, whatever. The second thing I say is give them a copy of it. So when you send out your welcome email or somewhere in your follow-up email correspondence, give them a copy. Say, this is, I know you didn't read it because no one ever does. Here's a copy of what you ticked the box for. I think it's really important that you read this because it manages our relationship, and I'd really like you to take this opportunity to have a look through it. It's not scary. Let me know if you've got any questions, or if there's anything you don't like in this agreement, I encourage you to negotiate with me about it. And the more ownership you have of your contract, the more comfortable you're going to be doing that. If it's something that a lawyer's drafted for you where you don't understand what it actually says, and you don't expect your client to understand it, you're not going to be comfortable negotiating it either. Whereas if you've written every word of it, if you understand what it's doing there, why it's there, you're going to be much happier to negotiate it and change it for individual clients. And B, and this is absolutely essential in our entrepreneurial world, the more comfortable you're going to be tweaking it over time. Every time your business pivots, you should be checking in with your contracts thinking, does this still suit who I am and how I work? So I recommend, even if you're not pivoting, even if your business isn't changing, checking in with your contracts once a quarter and just reading them for yourself and checking, does this still work for me? Is there anything here where I'm trampling my own boundaries? Is there anything here where clients are trampling my boundaries? Is there anything I don't actually understand or believe in? And fixing that, updating it. So I'm out of time. I hope that was useful and entertaining and not scary. And yeah, I'm very, very approachable and available. So if you ever have any questions, reach out. I'm here.